If you buy a van, keep yourself to yourself and park responsibly. Nobody really bothers you. Really? The moment your vehicle stops looking like transport and starts looking like a home, attitudes often change very quickly. The same roads suddenly become controlled spaces. Same parking spot suddenly becomes a problem. Because once you actually try to live on the road, the system starts behaving very differently. So why is mobility acceptable for holidays, but suspicious when it comes to be permanent? Living on the road, waterways or off-grid in the UK. Dickie Dread. And we're on part 7 of the video series, and we're still on chapter 1, types of travellers and off-grid folk. So today we're going to talk about vanlifers. The line between what people call New Age travellers and what is known as van life can sometimes be blurry. At the simplest level, a van lifer is someone who lives either full-time or for extended periods in a converted van or camper vehicle. In practice, however, the culture surrounding van life has developed in ways that could differ from the older traveller scene. People have been living in vans for decades, of course, but the term van life became widely popular during the 2010s through social media and online communities. More recently, the COVID-19 lockdowns also encouraged many people to reconsider how and where they live, and a noticeable number of people began exploring vehicle-based living as an alternative to conventional housing or expensive travel. Van lifers come from many different backgrounds. Some are long-term travellers who have simply adopted a different label, while others are people who have chosen van living for economic reasons, personal freedom or retirement travel. Increasingly younger people priced out the housing market are also experimented with vehicle-based living. There are also some cultural differences that people often notice between the older van traveller scene and modern van life culture. These are broad observations rather than hard rules, and there is a great deal of overlap between the two. Many van lifers travel individually or as couples rather than in large convoys, and they often keep a lower profile when parking or staying overnight. The idea of stealth camping, quietly parking without drawing attention, is widely discussed within van life communities. Travellers have long practiced similar strategies when necessary, although historically larger groups sometimes formed temporary roadside camps or festival communities. I actually got thrown off a van life website once just for showing the fact that I had a few bits of tat out. Anyway, vehicle styles can also vary. Traveller vehicles have traditionally been improvised and individually built. Old buses, trucks and vans converted using whatever materials were available. Van lifers more often use commercially converted campers or carefully designed van conversions, sometimes investing significant money and time creating comfortable mobile homes. Technology has also changed the way people find places to stay. Travellers historically relied heavily on word of mouth and informal networks, what was sometimes jokingly called the jungle telegraph. Van lifers today often use apps and online forums to share information about overnight parking spots, campsites and facilities. Despite these cultural differences, the basic reality is that both groups are exploring ways of living outside the conventional housing system. Life on the road, whether in a bus, a battered old van or a modern camper, involves many of the same challenges: finding safe places to park, managing water and power, dealing with regulations and adapting to a lifestyle that can be both freeing and demanding. For that reason, it makes little sense to draw rigid boundaries between travellers and van lifers. The labels may differ, but the underlying idea is often the same: a desire for mobility, independence and a life lived a little closer to one's own terms. As mobile living becomes more common, these different strands of travelling culture are increasingly overlapping. Many people move between them over time, and new forms of vehicle-based living continue to emerge. In that sense, van life can be seen not as something completely separate from the traveller tradition, but as another branch of the long history of people choosing to live on the road. Road living. Key legal points. There is no general legal right to live permanently in a vehicle on public roads, and there's more about this in chapter 2. We're going to cover this in detail. Parking is governed by a local authority, traffic regulations and traffic regulation orders, TROs, under the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984. Overnight sleeping in a vehicle is not illegal in itself, but can become unlawful if parking restrictions are breached, obstruction is caused, and local bylaws prohibit it. Common restrictions include no overnight parking zones, height barriers, time-limited parking, and designated no camping areas. Police powers may apply where issues arise. Obstruction of the highway under the Highways Act 1980 and Antisocial Behaviour and Crime and Policing Act 2014. Local authorities can act where vehicles are associated with encampments. Removal of vehicles from land, Criminal Justice and Public Order Act 1994, and powers strengthened under the Police, Crime Sentences and Courts Act 2022. Vehicles must remain taxed. That comes under the Vehicles Excise and Registration Act 1994, Insured, Road Traffic Act 1988, and Roadworthy, Road Vehicles Construction and Use Regulations 1984. A vehicle used for living in does not automatically gain residential status. It remains a vehicle in law, not a dwelling. Use of private land without permission may constitute civil trespass. Eviction may be sought through the courts, and in some cases police powers may also be used. In practice, short stays often pass without issue. Longer stays increase likelihood of enforcement, and patterns of behaviour matter as much as individual acts, and we will cover this a lot more in Chapter 2. The legal basis is basically the acts you can see. They're primarily derived from the Road Traffic Regulations Act, the Highways Act, Criminal Justice and Public Order Act, Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act, and the Police, Crime, Sentences and Courts Act. Mobile living is often tolerated only while it remains temporary, invisible or easy to move on. And if that's true, then the issue may go far beyond vans, parking spaces or overnight stops. Because once people begin living outside the standard housing model, the entire question of control starts to surface. Which means the real issue may not be just where people park, it might actually be who is allowed to exist outside fixed systems of property and permission. And if that's the case, how free is movement once it becomes a way of life? Okay, next section coming up is boat dwellers and waterway living.